Orange Bowl between Tennessee and Clemson. Clemson's a 4.5-point favorite here. Over under 63.5. As I mentioned, this game's Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPN in Miami Gardens, Florida. How much orange can you have for the Orange Bowl? Tennessee and Clemson. Talk about branding. But this game is not, I mean, these two teams were in the top 5, I think, after week 9. And these teams are going to look drastically different than they did at that point in time because we have 2 different starting quarterbacks now. Cade Klubnik will make his first career collegiate start in the postseason, taking on Joe Milton. There's no Hendon Hooker for Tennessee. Jalen Hylett, the Litnikoff Award winner, star wide receiver, he's out. Cedric Tillman, the other star receiver for Tennessee, is out. Their linebacker Banks is also out. On Clemson side, DJU transferred to Oregon State, so he's obviously out. Miles Murphy, who's probably a first-round draft pick on their defensive line, he's out, as well as linebacker Trenton Simpson. Could have a couple other opt-outs leading up to the game, but as of now, that's what we know. It's also worth mentioning that Josh Heupel lost his offensive coordinator, Alex Golesh, to South Florida, where he'll be the new head coach. And so the question here is, and look, Dabo Swinney, you have to give him credit for, he's been really good in bowls against the spread. I think he's 12-6 against the spread. And he takes them serious. And I mean, look, I'm going to start this podcast off in a good mood, and I'm not going to piss off Clemson fans. So I won't even talk about the comments that he made about name, image, and likeness and modeling his program after God. Maybe God's a Clemson fan. Maybe God actually chooses football teams. But when I look at this game, it's very hard to handicap because it's, okay, Tennessee's run defense was pretty good all year. So can Cade Klubnik and this Clemson passing offense, which was very inconsistent and underwhelming, take advantage of Tennessee's secondary? Because if you do look at Cade Klubnik, he was great he came in for DJU in the ACC championship, but that was North Carolina's defense. Now, maybe you could argue Tennessee's defense, as far as the secondary is concerned, is on the same level. And on the other side, it's like, what can you expect from Joe Milton? And now a very depleted, like you have Brew McCoy, and it's, you're going to have to rely on a couple of really inexperienced guys. Because you lose Hyatt and Tillman, that's a lot of production and a lot of talent on the outside. My first thought, I was thinking of maybe under here, but Tennessee unders in a bowl game, they're going to want to go as fast as possible. This one's pretty difficult for me to get a handle on. What do you see here?
Well, you're squirming in your chair saying you're not going to say anything about Dabo. I thought you were dying to get on here and talk about.
Well, not yet. I'm going to let you get in first.
Yeah. So, listen, the Cade Klubnik 2023 Heisman campaign is going to get started. Listen, he went 19 of 23 against UNC. 2 of those are being drops by the targets themselves. He went 6 of 8 in play action passing with a touchdown. I think that's going to be a similar format to what we see here. He had 2 scrambles, 2 designed runs. I'm not really sure why DJ Uiagalelei was the starter for so long this season. Clemson fans have been asking for it since midseason. I'm not really sure what took Dabo.
That's because of you. You were the one pushing the bus, the DJU podcast. You kept it going.
I renamed us the Cade Klubnik podcast midstream too. There's no losses from the wide receivers that had targets in the ACC championship game. Kobe Pace, the backup running back, but the 2-headed monster there with Will Shipley, he only had 3 carries. He's now in the portal. Not really a big hurt there, but, does the offense improve? The rushing was already one of the best in the nation. Like I said, with Will Shipley, he had a TD in all but 2 games this season. So if you can find a prop out there about Will Shipley hitting a touchdown, it's probably worth some money, especially if it's under -120 or -130. And although Tennessee was terrible in a pass rush at 105th, Byron Young at the edge, he's going to play in this game before he goes to the draft. He had 36 pressures, 7 sacks. I think what's interesting to me about Byron Young's numbers about can he be a factor here against the Clemson offensive line, he only had 3 pressures in his final 4 games, and that includes 0 pressures when he took on the Georgia offensive line. So he kind of disappeared when it turned into big time games for Tennessee. I think the big question here is defensive coordinator Tim Banks for Tennessee. He calls a lot of soft zone coverages. And opponents have had a lot of scoring opportunities here, especially against the secondary. Tennessee was 29th in defensive finishing drives, but it's going to be a true test for the Tennessee defense against Clemson and offensive coordinator Brandon Streeter, who finished 2nd in red zone efficiency and 4th in red zone TD percentage. How much of that was DJ, though, carrying the ball? We'll see. But I mean, Clemson has been elite in the red zone offensively. And then you mentioned Joe Milton. It's, the score against Vanderbilt may make you think that Joe Milton had a great game. He
Yeah,
did.
his numbers are pretty underwhelming.
Yeah, he went 11 of 21. He went 1 of 9 on passing over 20 yards. Not good. He completed 3 of 10 on blitz downs by Vandy. So you can expect a lot of blitz coming in from Wes Goodwin, the defensive
And
coordinator.
now you don't have Hyatt and Tillman out there.
Don't have Hyatt and Tillman. And I think Georgia really exposed what this Tennessee offense is and how you defend Josh Heupel, which is you have to jam at the line of scrimmage to get the timing off. Joe Milton can't even hit the timing, and his accuracy is not as good as Hendon Hooker. So to me, it just spells doom for Tennessee all over. A reason why I would want to take Clemson, with the market is now sitting at -5.5. And there are key players there. There's a lot of people that are out for Clemson, but there are some of the key players. Like Nate Wiggins is there at corner. He had 9 forced incompletions on the season. KJ Henry, Tyler Davis, Brian Barisi are all expected to play in this on the defensive line. And you mentioned that who is left for Tennessee to catch the ball. Ramel Keaton and Brew McCoy are there at wideout, but they're not explosive when you look at yards per route run at all. They are not Jalen Hylett in the slot, which is a monster gap that this offense just can't fill. So, I do project Clemson at -3 if everybody was playing in this game, considering they're not for Tennessee. I expect the number for Clemson to be higher, but for me, it's all Clemson here.
Yeah, I don't really like Tennessee, so that should tell you all you need to know, because I've been lower on Clemson in the market all year. And I would lean under too. I just don't think Tennessee's going to have that much success. And I think, Clemson's going to want to run the ball to set up the pass, and Tennessee's run D has been good. So I think the total is a tad high, but you make a good case for Clemson. And Dabo, like I said, has been really good in bowls. These guys for Tennessee opting out probably isn't a great sign for their motivation. You got to remember that, like, Clemson, and I thought last year against Iowa State that Clemson wasn't going to be motivated, and Dabo had them ready for that. Tennessee was so close to the college football playoff multiple times, right? Like, they controlled their own destiny, lost to Georgia, everything broke their way, and all they had to do was basically win out, and they get blown up by South Carolina. So I know it's the Orange Bowl. I know that it's Clemson, but there's got to be, I think Tennessee is more disappointed in how things broke than Clemson. And Clemson might be rejuvenated with Klubnik getting his first start here, whereas there's obviously a big drop off from Hooker to Milton.